UFC goes down this weekend, but Friday night we've got TUFF-N-UFF 142, and in the main event we've got a slugfest between Jamie Siraj and Diego Brandao. I'm going to break that matchup down as it's a Canadian kid who's on the hunt for a UFC contract against a UFC veteran. So let's head on over to Tapology and have a look at this fight card. As we can see, TUFF-N-UFF 142 Siraj versus Brandao goes down on UFC Fight Pass Friday, March 14th, 7 p.m. Pacific Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time from the theater at Virgin Hotels in Las Vegas. There's 16 bouts on this card, headlined by Siraj and Brandao, with a ton of other up-and-coming fights on this card as well. Isaac Medituk, who's also out of British Columbia, is on this card. It's going to be a doozy, but we're only going to talk about the main event between Jamie Siraj and Diego Brandao. Let's talk about Siraj, the local BC kid, 12-2, known as the Gremlin, gets in there and looks to get the finish each and every time he steps inside the cage. He was knocking on the UFC door a few years ago. Unfortunately, health issues came into play. You can check out some videos on this YouTube channel. Regarding Jamie Siraj, we talked to him prior to the UFC, obviously, the UFC call, and we've also talked to him numerous times after the health scares and after and before his last fights. This guy is a finisher. As I said, he likes to get in there and utilize his weapons. He believes that you haven't seen all of the weapons that he has to show just yet. He's definitely a cage wrestler and a guy who likes to get his wrestling skills at play, but he's also a striker. His boxing is some of the best in the division, especially in Canada, and he thinks in the world, and he thinks he should be in the UFC. So let's have a look at this. As I said, 12-2, 30 years old. He's been on the scene forever. Fights out of, well, it says TriStar Gym on there, but he fights out of Pinnacle as well as TriStar Vancouver. He's all over the place, this kid. He trains with a ton of different guys. And as you can see here, 4 wins by TKO or knockout, 5 wins by submission, and 3 by decision. Most recently, he had this amazing fight against Nimat at TUFF-N-UFF 140 in December of last year. A back-and-forth battle, but he got the job done late in the 5th round with ground and pound. It was an amazing fight. Prior to that, he beat David Briones by decision at BFL 81. He did not like that fight. He didn't think that he thought he could have done better. Let's just say that. Terrell Abasov at TUFF-N-UFF 137, a second-round rear naked choke after going through some hard struggles there in the first round. And then, he came back after a huge hiatus from the health scare against Esteban Sedano at BFL 77, picking up a decision. It was a very emotional night, but this kid has been undefeated since 2017. And how is he not in the UFC yet? We don't know. A victory against Diego Brandao basically punches his ticket to the show. At least we can hope. We move on over to Diego Brandao, 29-22, is on a 2-fight losing skid. This guy is 37 years old, fighting out of Jackson Wink. 16 wins by knockout, 12 losses by knockout as well, 6 wins by submission, 7 by decision, and 1 disqualification loss. As I said, well, actually a 1-fight losing skid because he had a grappling match after that. But he's bounced back and forth. He's sort of on a roller coaster. He had a huge losing streak there before getting back into it in 2022 when he picked up back a 3-fight winning streak, and then a loss, and then a win, and then a loss. So we'll see how he does against Jamie Siraj. Diego Brandao was a guy in the UFC who liked to get in there and throw his weapons. He had great leg kicks, he had great striking, but he threw caution to the wind. And Jamie's a precision fighter who likes to be very technical. He doesn't go in there and he doesn't scrap to just scrap, whereas Diego Brandao went in there and, as I said, threw caution to the wind. So this could be a guy who goes in there and likes to throw and likes to bang and likes to just get the job done. But against a guy like Siraj, I don't know if that's going to work because he's so technical. If he feels you pressuring him, he's going to shoot in and he's going to push you up against the cage and he's going to get you to the canvas. Then he's going to look for a submission or he's going to look for ground and pound. And I may sound like a homer here, but I'm picking Jamie in this fight. And I think he's going to get the job done, and I think he's going to get the job done within the distance. Diego Brandao has been around the block. He's not a guy who's afraid to get in there and bang, but I think Jamie is the guy who is next on the UFC's roster, and I think he's going to get the job done. It's not much of a breakdown because I just think he's gonna close out the show at TUFF-N-UFF 142 with a spectacular finish and get Sean Shelby and Dana White to sign a contract and say, hey, buddy, you're ready for the UFC. You heard it here. This is Jeremy Brand. Make sure you subscribe, like, do all that other jazz for MMA Sucka. Make sure you check out Slappy's, best vodka soda in town.